Hey there, welcome to Your Worth, Your Way, the podcast that's all about helping you to understand that you are worthy of prioritizing your joy without feeling selfish or guilty. I'm Debbie Lucas, the Joy Alchemist, and each week I'll be bringing you honest, heartfelt conversations with incredible guests, coaches, thought leaders, and soulful humans who'll share their stories and insights on self-worth, confidence, personal growth, and how to live a life that feels authentically yours. This isn't about quick fixes or cookie cutter advice. It's about real talk, practical takeaways, and plenty of soulful inspiration to help you live life your way. So grab your favorite cuppa and let's dive into today's episode. So today I am joined by my good friend Susan Murray, a highly effective therapeutic coach since 2016, and she specializes in helping women recover from conditions like ME, CFS, fibromyalgia, and anxiety. Susan works with one-to-one clients and also creates online self-paced courses. And today we'll be diving into being true to yourself, living in alignment, and how not doing that is the root cause of all kinds of unease, from boredom to full-on chronic illness and everything in between. I'm so excited for you to hear Susan's journey and insights on living life her way. So welcome, Susan. Happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
So obviously you and I have been friends now for a number of years, and partly this podcast was born out of the conversations that you and I were having on a weekly basis. Because how
Yeah,
many times did I say to you, "Oh, we should have recorded that. It would have made a great podcast." So here
yeah,
we are.
here
So
we are.
thank you for being part of this journey and the inspiration for getting Your Worth, Your Way up and running.
Of course, of course.
So how are you today, and what's lighting you up right now?
I'm good today. I'm a little tired, but I am good. What is lighting me up right now? I think seeing some key significant shifts in the client work that I'm doing, particularly with uh, clients with really challenging issues at the moment, and just seeing how when they do the work and they put in the work and they apply what I'm encouraging them to apply, the the shifts that kind of occur. I really believe in what I do, but every time you actually see it happening, and I've been doing this for like 9 years now, it's still like yes, you know. So
Yeah. I know it's amazing when you know what you do works, but you can, like, when you actually see it in action and you see you, because everybody's journey and everybody's transformation and the outcomes they receive are very different. So seeing that for each person is just, it really kind of warms your heart and makes your heart burst with pride, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
cool. So tell us a little bit about your story and what led to you doing the work that you do right now.
Well, so my mum had ME and fibromyalgia when I was a teenager. She was diagnosed with these conditions, and that was quite a long time ago now. And it was really back in a time when these conditions weren't believed. Like doctors didn't actually believe them. It was called things like the yuppie flu and all of that. So I mean, we're not in a brilliant place with these conditions yet, but it was a lot worse back then. So she struggled a lot, and there just wasn't anything that could help her back then. So it was a bit, watching that struggle. She was bedridden. She lost her job because she couldn't go to work, and it was really frustrating to have doctors just have no answers, and they would just give her a cocktail of medication in order to try and manage the symptoms, but then they produced more symptoms and side effects and stuff. So, um, fast forward a few years, because I took a bit of a detour in getting to where I am today. I realised that what I was doing wasn't really working for me. In the meantime, my mum passed away because she couldn't recover, and she developed more serious health conditions which she just couldn't recover from. Um, And I was like, I kind of felt, discovered that was a crossroads. So, and I just needed to do something different and I couldn't find what it was. So I kind of went back to like, well, what am I good at? What, what do I do naturally? Um, and I realized that I just wanted to help people. And what I naturally did for the people around me was to be there for them, to be that emotional support. But when you're doing that for the people in your life all the time, there's a it's not a very good balance. You are the person that people come to and come to and come to, and then you're seen as the strong one. And before you know it, you're putting everybody else's needs first and not looking after yourself. So I thought, well, maybe if I actually do this as a profession and help other people who can give me that exchange
Yeah.
and there's that balance and it's more directed. So I started counselling training, and then I discovered a type of therapy that was specific for helping people with these chronic conditions. Obviously, when I found that out, I was like, oh, right, this is interesting. So I learned that the root cause of these conditions was emotional.
Yeah.
A build-up of suppressed emotions over time physically manifested in people. Um, so I did the training for that. I learned all about it. I started practicing and seeing and seeing the results and going, this is this is getting results faster than counselling would. You
Mhm.
know, uh, this is this is where I want to be at, and if I can help people to recover from these conditions, then it feels like I'm doing something. There's some sort of purpose here, and all of the suffering I saw my mum go through won't have been in vain. If I can help, I couldn't help her.
Yeah.
As much as I tried, I couldn't help her. But yeah, I can help. I can help other people who want it um, and resonate with this kind of approach.
Well, first of all, what a beautiful legacy to honor your mum, and her journey, and that there's whilst you couldn't do much at the time, I'm sure she's looking down from wherever she may be, that with pride, that you have kind of used her as an inspiration to help so many other people. And I think that the other part that you were talking about there about emotions and root cause, root cause is the fundamental work of so many different modalities that you and I both know and are trained in, but that there's other ones out there as well. And I think it's that bit about emotions being energy in motion.
Yep.
And when that energy gets stuck in you, that's when the disease, as they talk about disease starts. So obviously, you believe that not living in alignment is the root cause of a lot of that kind of boredom and the chronic illnesses and everything in between. So can you share what it means and how someone can start recognizing when they're out of alignment? What does that kind of look like when clients first come to you?
Um, well, when clients come to me, they tend to be quite far down the road. So they either have um, anxiety that is stopping them from living life as they want to, or they are right in chronic illness and desperately looking for a way out of it. Um, and different people are at different stages of um, believing or seeing the connection between the mind and the body, and how emotional work can alleviate physical symptoms. Because we are taught the opposite throughout our lives. So um, some people are still quite skeptical, and then other people are completely open minded when they come to me. But when you start to talk to people about, well, um, what's happening in your everyday life, and you start talking about things like unfair treatment, how are your boundaries around that, and are you meeting your needs? Do you feel that you're meeting your needs and all of this sort of stuff? And you start seeing pennies dropping. So with my clients, by the time they come to me, they're probably feeling quite separated from their emotions. So they're
Yeah.
not really tuned in very much to the emotions. They've gone past the negative emotions and they've kind of inadvertently suppressed them or
Yeah.
ignored them.
Yeah.
And that's why they've developed the physical manifestations. So when I work with them, it's about linking those things up together again and going, okay, so when you're having a kind of fluctuation in symptoms or they're more than usual, what's happening around the time, and connecting that to the emotional issues, and then they start seeing the patterns. And then what they'll do is they'll start further down the line recognizing the negative emotions and taking action there before the physical manifestation. And that's the key. That's when they start being able to tune into that inner guidance again. And that for me is being in alignment. That is aligning what's going on in between your mind
Yeah.
and your body. And it's so much that I moved on from the therapy I trained in and developed my own because I brought in other stuff, and it's called mind body alignment. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's very much what it's all about for me.
Yeah. And I think, I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask following up on that, but I think it is that bit about, as you said, people who come to you because chronic illnesses means it's been there for a long time. And, and no shade to the medical profession. They're doing the best they can with what they've been taught and what they know. And, thankfully there are many more medical professions or professionals opening up to this idea of the mind and the body and the kind of the links between that. But I think, as you say, by the time they come to you, they've been so focused on the physical and managing the physical and managing the symptoms with the medication, as you say, that there's been they're completely detached, and it's become even further away from those emotions. And
Yeah.
Again, no shade on anybody who was supporting them at that point through the medical professions, but that is just the reality of it. And I think, as you say, it's not until you kind of like tap back into that and start really kind of, realizing that your emotions are part of this. Sometimes there is genuine physical reasons why somebody is unwell. It's not all just, it's not just all just emotional. There's the balance there. But it is just about then kind of tapping into, right, what's caused this, or what's aggravated it, I suppose is another word. But then also, how can I manage it with my current condition, and how can I manage that in the day to day as well?
Mm-hmm.
So you spoke about the importance of meeting your own needs, and I suppose many women, especially caregivers and people pleasers, and probably there's a lot of us who are people pleasers, a lot of my listeners who will identify with that and really struggle with meeting, our own needs. I know certainly for me, before I kind of became a bit more aware of my own people pleasing tendencies, that was something that I really struggled with. So how would you recommend, or how do you support your clients to identify and honor their own true needs without feeling guilty or selfish about it?
Well, first of all, you can take feelings of guilt and selfishness. First of all, I reframe selfishness because I think it's a positive thing. You can
Yeah,
selfish being selfish doesn't mean doing harm to others. They're
yeah,
two separate things.
yeah,
So selfishness is actually good. I probably rephrase it more often as self first. Um, but also you can take those feelings of guilt and drop kick them out the window. They don't belong at
mhm,
all, and they are what I describe as secondary emotions, not valid, not necessarily valid. Because the least selfish thing that you can do is put yourself first. Because if you're at your best, then you can be there for other people. It's that whole thing. You can't pour from an empty cup. All these sayings that we hear, but if we actually allow ourselves to let that sink in and process it and understand what it means, you have a limited capacity to just give and give and give, and therefore you're going to run out.
yeah,
And people with chronic illnesses have pretty much run out.
yeah,
Um, And if they haven't, they'll keep giving and giving and giving until they have a massive flare up and then they can't do anything for a while. That's literally their body going, enough,
Yeah. And then they're no good
that
to
is,
anybody.
yeah, guidance from your body. So if you turn that around and you go, no, wait a minute, what do I need? And you meet them, what you're doing is you're you're filling yourself up. And I know that that's an overused phrase, I think, sometimes, but it's giving you emotional energy because we're emotional beings. People think we get energy from food because we're physical human beings.
Yeah.
No, we need emotional energy as well, and
Yeah.
that carries us so much further than we think. So when we meet our needs, it fills us with energy and it increases our capacity to be there for other people, and we can be there with integrity. So we can show up for other people, because we have the capacity and when we want to, and that's so much better for the other person than showing up with out of obligation
Yeah.
and all of that stuff that breeds resentment and negativity. They haven't asked for that, you know.
Yeah.
So there's that, and the the way I help my clients start with this, because when you haven't been meeting your needs, you know what it's like if you've been a people pleaser for a long time, as I was, and somebody goes, are you meeting your needs? What are my needs? I don't know what the hell they are.
Yeah.
Because you've had that detachment, because you've been thinking about other people and going with them so much. Yeah, you don't know what you enjoy anymore. It can be really hard to tap back into that. So I start with that. I have a starting point of we all have a bunch of common needs that we need to meet regularly. So a selection of categories that if we are kind of ticking these boxes on a regular basis, um, then we feel fulfilled and we feel emotionally safe. So I've got that starting point rather than people trying to pluck ideas out of the
Yeah.
air. It's like, well, what do you do that is fun and creative in your life? What are you learning at the moment? Go through all of these sorts
Mm.
of things, and that starts that thought process going.
Mm. Yeah, so much of what you were saying there resonates, on my journey as well. Like peeps, I remember working with my very first coach, and I think one of the questions was like, what do you want? What do you need? Or what, I can't remember exactly the question, but I genuinely couldn't answer it. And like when I talk about my journey now, I'll say like, my needs weren't at the bottom of the list. They weren't even on the list. It was just like, and like that, and I think back to times where, thankfully I've not developed any chronic illnesses, but I guess there was anxiety to some shape or form, but overwhelm was a big thing for me. And with the times when I was feeling overwhelmed and probably close to burnout, I was ratty as hell with it. Everybody, like my son, I would be, kind of nipping at him, the arguments with my partner, I'd be maybe not necessarily rude or argumentative at work, but I would be a bit more abrupt probably.
Yeah,
People could probably tell when I was kind of feeling a bit stressed, and that was no good for anybody. And it just made me feel yucky, and it just then perpetuates that cycle, doesn't it?
yeah,
Because yeah, people are then reacting because they've got their own things that's going on as well. But a couple of things that I wanted to touch on there before I come to my next question was you spoke about like, tapping into what you need. And for me, a big part of and the conversations I have on this podcast is about like your intuition. And I know
mhm,
for a lot of people that feels like a foreign concept and it maybe feels a bit woo-woo and out there. But really that is the alignment bit with your mind and your
yeah,
body. And like when it's not in alignment, it's always going to feel icky. But when it is in alignment, it's going to feel good, isn't it? And that's when you're thinking about like, do I do this or this, or you've got, do I prioritize my rest compared to helping somebody else? The bit that feels in alignment, the bit that feels good, that's your intuition. It will tell you, right, this, prioritizing my rest feels good and expansive, but actually doing this work is going to make me feel constricted. It's going to tire me out even more. And so that's where that kind of misalignment starts. And then, that's when that cycle kind of continues.
yeah, definitely. And I talk about that kind of intuition, inner guidance and stuff. It's your emotional brain. Your our primary emotions are there to guide us. It's literally like a sat nav for us, to guide us through life and going. this feels good, do more of this feels bad, do
Yeah.
less of that.
Yeah.
And it sounds overly simplistic, but that is basically what it comes down to. And it really is that, exactly what you're saying. So whatever that translates to you, it translates as to you. So yeah, actually, if I say yes to that, how's that making me feel? Well, actually, I'm already starting to feel a bit stressed about it. That's me overextending myself. you know that's going to really put me out. And and exploring, what that is that you're feeling, because it's a feeling, it's a physical feeling first. Your emotional brain is your body.
Yeah.
It's that kind of gut response to things. um and when you can tap into that and explore that initial feeling before it turns into all the
Mhm.
secondary stuff that your thinking brain will come in with, and follow that, that's that's what feels good. It feels like things have just clicked into place. So you're that back into alignment, everything's lining up. Yes, this feels good, and you start feeling like you're following this, and all these synchronicities happen, and that takes you here, and this takes you here, and that's you getting into the flow of life.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, as you were talking, the word flow was coming into my head there. And it's that bit about like life feels easy, life becomes easy. It
Yeah,
doesn't feel forced. And that mental load of just trusting, if you're trusting yourself and trusting that it will unfold and that things will
yeah,
happen the way it's meant to be, it just takes a whole lot of thinking out of your mind, your like your actual mind, because you can just go with it and you can live in the moment and you can be more present.
yeah. The less thinking you do about stuff, and we need to think things through,
Yeah.
obviously, but once you think through something once, that's enough.
Yeah.
If you find yourself revisiting stuff in your head over and over, you're into overthinking, and you're just wasting your time. You're going to push yourself further and further away from solutions. So if you manage to just kind of come back into the moment and go, right, I use the phrase get out of your head and back into your body a lot. Um, and it's more peaceful, quieter, feels better. Um, and and yeah, you can get back into that flow. It takes practice, so this stuff really does take practice, especially when it feels alien to you. It
Mhm.
feels alien to begin with, it really does,
Yeah.
but
And
you get there.
this is like for my listeners who listen to many of my episodes, this is something I have this conversation early in every single interview, is that bit about like you and I are sitting here, but we've been on a journey for years. And it's an ongoing journey. We're not sitting here going like we've got it cracked, but this takes time, and it does feel scary. It feels yucky. It's like, it's like trying to pull these things out and like actually face it. But for me, it's about like understanding it, integrating it, knowing that it's a part of you, knowing that it served a purpose. For me,
Yeah.
anger was a big thing for a long time, and I suppressed it for a long, long time as well, until a couple of years ago. I was like, I feel like I'm not feeling anger. I occasionally would have the momentary road rage, but nothing in terms of like real anger. And I think it was because like when I actually started tapping into it, like I had visions of me literally punching holes in walls and
Yeah.
like, throwing things at windows, that kind of level of rage. And it was scary. But like I worked with a somatic coach to help me kind of really process that.
Mm.
Like I can understand it, I can feel it. And when I now feel anger, it's kind of like, okay, what's the trigger here? What's going on for me? Because there's some kind of unhealed or limiting belief or unhealed wound or some kind of trauma, and I use trauma with the small t there, and that's kind of still unresolved for
Yeah.
me. So it's like go a bit deeper again. But one of the other things that you mentioned when you were talking earlier was around kind of like obligation slash expectation. And I know for me, back when I was fully immersed in my people pleasing days and totally unconscious about these things, I often I suppose made assumptions of other people's expectations on me. You're nodding, you're
Exactly.
laughing and nodding, right? You know what
We're,
I'm talking
we're
about.
good at
So
that.
Um, does that show up for your clients, and how do you help them through that?
One of the one of the big things that I encourage people not to do is to drop assumptions. In fact, have you read the Four Agreements?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, I'll need to, yeah, read that. In fact, there's a fifth agreement he's added, so it's
Okay.
now the five agreements. It's a brilliant book. And one of the rules, one of the agreements is, don't make assumptions. And when you can stop making assumptions, it takes away a lot of that thought. You don't have to assume anything. You're not responsible for somebody else and their thoughts and their feelings and their behaviors. It's up to them. If they have an issue with something, it's up to them to communicate that to you or to bring that to you. Until that point, you don't have to do anything. You can just keep being you. And even if they do have an issue, it might still not be anything to do with you.
Yeah.
So, but I call, making assumptions just making shit up.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I say to my clients. It's just like they'll say something. I'm like, are you making shit up again? And it just helps. I think when you bring it, down to that level, I like a wee sweary word.
Yeah.
Um, when you can say it like that and bring some lightness to it, it helps people remember, and it helps them on their own to tap in as well and go. They're probably thinking that they'd expect. Wait a minute, hang on a second, I'm making shit up again.
Yeah.
So, and you just don't have to do that. If we've got a question, can ask the question. Ask a question if you're not sure about something, and then you get the answer. And if it's not the right answer, that's not on you. That's on
Yeah.
the person not giving you the truth about it.
Yeah.
So it's this sense of over responsibility for other
Yes.
people, and it causes so much anxiety, so much stress, so much dis-ease
Oh, yeah.
within us. And when we can go, oh wait, that's not mine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give that back to you, and I'm going to take responsibility for me, because that's what we do. We take responsibility for other people.
Uh-huh.
For some reason, that feels easier at the time than taking responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I use the analogy a lot, like my courses and stuff, of it's a story. It's not mine, so I read it somewhere else or I
Yeah.
heard it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it's like a row of local shops in a wee town or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of the owners just kept the outside of their shop clean,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have a whole clean street.
Yeah.
The problems arise when you start trying to do more or less than just taking care of the
Yeah.
bit outside your shop. You know, um, so because if you're trying to do more and that person doesn't need it because they're quite happy, they're capable of taking care of that. You're overexerting yourself, you're putting yourself onto them, they're feeling obligated to do something back. Or if you're doing less than that and expecting others to kind of chip in, it's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
But if you look after your own wee patch, you look after yourself, but you enable others, you help enable others to look after themselves.
Yeah.
Because if we're stepping in all the time to look after others and do things for them, we are disempowering them,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh gosh, there's so much in what you said there. But like one of the things when you're talking about the assumptions, that there was a saying that I came across a while ago, and it was, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. If you look at the
Yeah,
way that's spelled now, like I love that, because I made assumptions all the time, and like I did take responsibility for other people, but like for me, the way people pleasing showed up was like it was tied to my self-worth, which is what this podcast is all about. I only felt worthy if I was helping or being of, well, as I perceived it, being of
yeah,
use to other people. I know
yeah,
that wasn't their expectation now, but it led to so much conflict because I was constantly forcing my help on people, whether they wanted it or not. And they perceived it. And again, now I understand that's their stuff, but they perceived
yeah,
it as me trying to be controlling.
yeah,
And so it caused loads of conflict and disharmony within, relationships and friendships and things like that. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, that you are not responsible for other people. And,
Yeah.
as you say, if we can all take responsibility for ourselves, and when we can recognize that, and when we can understand, and when people are reacting and responding, it's their stuff,
Yeah.
nothing to do with you. Unless you're being deliberately and intentionally
Yeah.
harmful and nasty, that's a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
99% of us, that's not what we're about. We want to be helpful, we want to be nice, we want to love people, and it's born out of love. But it comes down to the communication, as you said, asking the simple question, would you like help? Would you like my view on this? Before just offering it, can make
Yeah.
can make so much difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say there.
That's
My
okay.
cat came in and distracted me, so
Susan's got beautiful cats, and we're not going to be graced with their presence today. Unfortunately, we don't see them. So yeah, there's so much more we could talk about. But I'm kind of mindful of the time. So one of the last things that I'm all about joy, as you know, and as my listeners will know, and that's a big focus of the podcast. So, what's one way that you intentionally create joy in your everyday life, and what advice would you give someone who's struggling to prioritize their own happiness?
wow. Well, I very much practice what I preach. So, the categories of needs that I was talking about earlier. I've got a table that I get people to fill out, and I've got my own up there. So I make sure that I'm ticking these boxes all the time. So I make sure that I'm getting creativity in, and doing things that I feel fill me up. So, I'll get out into nature and go places for walks and all of that. So as long as I'm getting the kind of balance and variety that I need in my life, then I'm feeling emotionally safe, and that's when I'm in alignment and can feel joy um and all that, all that goes with that. And what was the second part of the question there?
How would you encourage somebody who struggles to prioritize joy?
Just know that that's why we're here. We're not here to suffer. We're not here to struggle through life. Yes, it's we have challenges in life, but that's part of our growth. But it's okay to move towards what makes us feel good. But it's not just okay. That's why we have an emotional guidance system. It's literally built in. These are the rules of being alive. Move towards joy. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And you know, that yeah, it's why we're here. So start noticing how you feel about things, and and at that kind of deep inner guidance level, and follow it. See where you go. Give it a try. Just give it a try. Play with it for a wee while and see what happens.
Yeah.
And let me know.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that because, like, when you were talking there, I was just thinking, like, how much nicer would the world be to live in if we were all just happy and joyful? And as you say, we're not here to suffer. We're not here to live in that space. So, as you say, playfulness is something that I try and bring into my daily life. It's how I prioritize joy, and it's just like, be playful with it. Just
Yeah,
we've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
yeah. Experiment with it. Go see
Yeah.
what happens. Turn off the news.
Yes. Yes. I need to listen to that sometimes because I get myself going down rabbit holes. But yeah, that yeah, it's a whole other podcast in its own. Um, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your stories and insights. And like, there was so many things that stood out for me, but I'm just kind of looking back in my notes, a couple of things I wrote down. That bit about being selfish is a positive thing. It's about looking after yourself, and it's not the same as doing harm to others.
Yeah.
That's like, even just that message has landed with me in a very different way. So I am very sure that my listeners will want to find out more about you and what you do. So where's the best place that they can find you and learn more about your work?
Well, I'm on Facebook. My personal Facebook profile is where I share most stuff. So I'm sure you'll pop a link to that.
Yes,
But also my website covers basically everything about me and everything that I do, and that's officialsusanmurray.com.
brilliant. Okay, that's great. Any last nuggets that you want to share?
Just I'll just reiterate that, you know, we're not here to suffer. It's okay to feel good. It's okay to be okay. So as much as it's okay to not be okay at times, it's not okay to stay there. It's all right to be okay. You've got permission to go and do what feels good. And if you do have any of these chronic conditions, there's hope. You can get out of them. You don't have to be there.
Brilliant. Great golden nugget. Thank you so much, Susan. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Worth, Your Way. I know you will be walking away feeling inspired and ready to embrace your worth and prioritize joy. If you love this episode, I'll be so grateful if you could leave a review or share it with someone who needs a little bit of encouragement or inspiration today. And don't forget to hit the follow button so you never miss another episode. You can connect with me, find out more about the podcast, my guests and all their links, and what I do at debbielucas.me/links. And if you don't already, follow me on your favorite social media platform. I'd love to connect with you over there and continue the conversation. And until next time, remember that you are worthy exactly as you are.